It's changing, not quick enough. But I always find that quite a powerful, inspirational piece to watch. And as I said, it's the lesson to my girls, go crazy. So with that, I'd like to pass you over back to the main speakers and the people that you've come to hear. So the amazing and something special, the Baroness, Tanni Grey Thompson. Absolutely amazing. What you've done is fantastic, and the inspiration and everything. So we look forward to hearing from yourself. And Sue, I believe, is awesome. There you go. It's that video, it just gets me every time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. So thank you, Reese. And before we do pass over to the amazing guest that we have today, I just wanted to say a couple of quick words. We're really delighted. I'm Jess. I'm from Cymru Women Sport. By all means, I'm just one part of the team that's behind Cymru Women Sport, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But we're really delighted to bring everybody together, organise events like this that nobody's going to come and nobody's going to care, but actually just to see so many people in the room is brilliant. For us, it's really exciting to co-host the event with the Women's Sport Collective, who are definitely making this incredible movement of bringing women in leadership roles, women to network together. And so it's really exciting to have it happen in Wales. Before I say a bit more about Cymru Women Sport, I'm just going to ask Kate to talk quickly about the collective.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's absolutely delightful to be here and to see so many in the room. I'm Kate Hannon, as Jess said, and we're in two hats today, which is brilliant. So I'm the co-founder of the Women's Sport Collective, and I think we've got lots of members in the room. Can you show of hands if you're a member of the Women's Sport Collective? Brilliant.
The rest of you will be by the end.
Yeah, nobody's leaving without a membership form being completed. And my second hat is that I'm delighted to say that I've just been appointed to the board of Cymru Women Sport. So I'm absolutely delighted that those two passions have come together. For those of you that don't know about the Women's Sport Collective, we're a network community of women that work in sport, and bringing them together. And we do that with online and in-person networking meetings. We do some live webinars. We get offers, discounts for industry events. We've got some mentor programs coming on. It's free to join, so please do join. We've been going 3.5 years. We're up to 7,000 members, and that's across all areas of sport. So we've got Sally Mundy, who's head of UK Sport at the top. We've got an amazing woman who's a dog handler and does security at sporting events, and everybody in between. So if you've got a role in sport, please do join us. We have grown massively since we're up to 7,000 members, and we've just recently launched regional hubs. We've got up to 10 of those, and I'm delighted to say that this is the first meeting of the Welsh hub in conjunction with Cymru Women Sport. And we've got a WhatsApp chat, so if you're not involved in that, I can send you a link, so please get involved with that. There's lots of offers and asks and opportunities being shared with that, and it's brilliant to see all of that interaction taking place. So welcome, enjoy the afternoon. I won't ramble for too much longer because it's not me that you want to come and talk to. I'll just hand back to Jess. Enjoy the afternoon.
Thank you, Kate. I don't think it's me that people want to listen to it, so I won't ramble. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Cymru Women Sport, kind of the history, and a very whistle-stop tour of history because it is quite a long one, and then talk about kind of where we hope to go and the kind of ambition to move this forward. So I suppose to sum it up, Cymru Women Sport was sort of born after years and years of conversation with people that were kind of working in sport and on the fringes of kind of women's sport. And I think it's probably fair to say that the conversation was on balance equal amounts of passion to drive women's sport change and to continue and to accelerate this amazing rise that we're seeing in the kind of women's sport movement, with an equal amount of frustration around the pace and scale of change not being quick enough, not being deep enough, and not being systemic enough. And so after a couple of attempts of amazing campaigns that we've seen here, individuals that were kind of breaking stories around the challenges and the opportunities for women in sport in Wales, lots of opportunities to network, a couple of groups that were formed, the conversation quickly moved into this space where we identified that actually to make a real change, we probably need an entity that is going to move this forward. And in part, and I'm sure I'm speaking to people in the room that would feel this, we also identified that actually an independent voice that wasn't attached to somebody's day job or their day-to-day activities or how they volunteered or what they were doing on a daily basis, but could actually collect that kind of almost collective change that we want to see under a certain brand was also needed. So Cymru Women Sport really was born from groups of people kind of getting together and having those conversations over a number of years, and we're absolutely indebted to where we are now to those precursor conversations, and there's an absolute load of amazing people that were part of that. At the start of last year, so to bring you forward a couple of years, myself, Emma Henwood, who's sitting at the back, and Lee Robinson, who I suppose were the sort of 3 founding trustees of this new organisation, decided that we need to try and take hold of this and make some kind of structure out of it. So that is kind of where we are now, and actually today is for us a bit of a soft launch into what Cymru Women Sport could be in the future. We've very, very recently, as Kate alluded to, been joined by 3 additional trustees. So welcome to Kate, to Beth Fisher, who's sitting in the middle, and also to Sarah Boswell, who's at the back as well. So really exciting time for us as we kind of almost build really from here and make sure that the organisation that we create is really, really representative of the Wales that we live in. And for us, that's an absolute focus in the really, really immediate future, is making sure that actually all of women's voices across all roles at different levels, whether that's in governance, coaching, media, if you work for a national organisation, if you're interested in women's sport research, that actually that is represented in the most diverse form through this organisation. So we do have 3 strategic pillars. I'm actually really glad I'm standing right next to the back. I get these words wrong all the time. And actually this is a true thing that I got a word wrong and Emma corrected me last week. So our first strategic pillar is about connection, and that really is what today is all about, and absolutely delighted to be able to do that in collaboration with a collective who do this so well on an international scale. So we really identified that there was no mechanism for people who are interested in women's sport to come together in Wales, and hopefully today is the start of many networking events in all different forms, whether it's opportunities like this to hear from people in conversation, whether that's online, at sporting events, you name it, we're interested in trying to kind of make it happen. So hopefully at the end of this afternoon you do have an opportunity to talk to each other as well, because for us that is hugely important. Our second area is about celebration. We also kind of recognised that there was no almost bespoke organisation or voice that was celebrating and championing women's sport in Wales on the kind of world and national scale. Again, we have some absolutely amazing female athletes. We have people who are in governance jobs internationally that are really changing systemic structures. We have amazing female leaders in Wales, and really for us this is about championing and celebrating their success, but also celebrating all of the stuff that's going on and the opportunities that are there for women in sport. And then the last area is about advocacy, and this is kind of where the change happens really. So we are really keen to advocate for the change that I'm sure the reason that you're here today is because you'll probably share the sentiment, the change that we know needs to happen at all levels and all roles for women's sport in Wales. And that is at a governance level, that is women represented in sport media, that is the challenges that women face, the opportunities that are here in Wales, that is with fundamentally investment, but part of Cymru Women Sport and that third strategic pillar is to really advocate for that change. So that is us in a nutshell. We are small but hugely ambitious, like a lot of things in Wales, and absolutely brilliant to have so many people that have come to join us today. So thank you very, very much. Hopefully we'll have a really fruitful and interesting conversation, which I know we will. Really, really delighted and massively grateful to Sue Anstiss and also to Tanni Grey Thompson for joining us today to help us kind of move through the next couple of hours. So thank you. Oh, the last thing to say, which is a bit of a shameless plug, but everybody knows I'm going to say this, is that we are on all social media platforms. So that's the line, isn't it? One of the ways that we hope to grow is through visibility and profile, and I think actually you sharing that with your networks is going to be fundamental. So we have got a QR code, but you can find us at Cymru Women Sport across all of those channels. So please share, please tell everybody that you know, and enjoy the conversation between Sue and Tanni.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like I don't need to introduce. I do feel like I know a lot of people in the room, but I am the co-founder of the Women's Sport Collective with Kay. That's the hat that I'm wearing today as well. But similarly, we're different hats, but that's where I think, I know many of you, if not in person, today has been fantastic to meet some in person, but through the glory of LinkedIn and Zoom meetings and such like. So super happy to be here with Tanni. I've been together twice this week, haven't we? So see each other at all, and then
loads of time together.
Loads of time together. So lovely to see you. And I think what I want to do today is talk a little bit about your career, but really to get your thoughts on where we are with women's sport across the whole of that landscape, really. But I'm going to start, if I can do, with your sporting journey. And I'm sure in a room like this, there aren't many people here that don't know of your amazing accolades. But I wonder if you can share with us a short, little sort of scripted bio of where you are, your sporting achievements would be good to hear about.
Okay, so I grew up actually not very far from here, in Cardiff. Sport mad family. Mum watched a lot of sport, Dad played a lot of sport. My mother was completely obsessed with rugby. And Gareth Edge is the greatest thing to walk into. As long as we all know that, we're fine. I was born with spina bifida, could walk a little bit when I was young, got paralysed when I was 7. My parents had to fight to get me a wheelchair because all these people said, if she's a wheelchair user, she'll have a normal life. My parents also had to fight to get me to mainstream school because back, when I was 10, disabled children had no right to be educated in mainstream education. And that was really important for me because I was playing sport by then, but without mainstream ed, I wouldn't have gone to university and I wouldn't have had the career that I did. I played loads of sport, was completely rubbish at everything, very enthusiastic, and because I got into a fight
but in terms of
a woman to present Grandstand, the world was going to end because she was presenting Grandstand. And the coverage of Paralympics, what's that got to do with it? They don't go ex-footballer looks a bit like a potato, but no, my man, it's that. So some of this, what's brilliant today is some of it. I think what we need to do is kind of remember our past because it's not that long ago. It's not that long ago that when you talk about women only being allowed to, just there were definitely more sports offered to boys than to girls. So I think there's more understanding of, well, not every boy's sport, best I've heard. So there's stuff like that. So, I think certainly what I've seen in my lifetime, depending how the men's Welsh rugby team play, impacts what we're playing well. What is amazing, now with professionalisation of the women's game, we're still behind England in some of the contracts and things like that, but it's getting better. But there's lots of challenges all over, and I think it's very easy to become, there's a lot of different challenges, and you can't just say, all women have the same challenges, but we've just got to be aware. And the reality, us at Sport Wales, is our funding's changing. That's impacting governing bodies' funding. That impacts what they're able to deliver and change. So we've got to think about how we do things in a different way to bring people in.
And then that
but that's
an ecosystem of sport.
okay. We still need more women on boards. So somebody said to me recently, when are you going to stop going on about women on boards? I was like, well, when all the men are brilliant. Because is this being live streamed? Yeah. There are some very average men who I know who've sat on sports boards, and actually some of the best allies I've had in that space have been where other men have sat on the board and said, she just said that. So that allyship, I think, is really important. But we need to encourage and Welsh Government's doing a lot of work in this space about helping and supporting, because So I was on a panel for recently where some sharing and helping, and the best leaders that I've seen are the ones who else that, you know, we need to we have to be mindful of in recruitment and things that we do. So, you know, it's saying to people, you know, when you're asked about Welsh speaking, you need to say you have a commitment to learn Welsh. You don't need to be able to say loads, because I panic when I speak Welsh. But
was it Crin Handa? What did I learn?
Handa.
Can I come and say it now? I've been coached on the way up.
It was either that or hiya.
Tidy. So, you know, it's stuff. So it's a shot, and you know, just want really good. Everyone. And then I think it's something hitting. I'm 54. It's something hitting 50 as well. Everyone. And then I think it's something hitting. I'm 54. It's something hitting 50 as well. Where I'm just not. So I do try to, you know, not lose it in meetings. I sense check with, and you know, I only think of the really witty, amusing thing to say in a meeting about 4 hours later. Where it wasn't that long ago, I can't say anything, because if I do, I'm really angry. And then just looking at every other board member around the table, just look at me, I go. And then coming out and just somebody saying, were you upset by that? You know, so you sometimes need that, and because actually, the older you get, you just get better at dealing with the same stuff. And that's, you know, where I think we can help some of the younger women is, you know, is not pretending this misogyny.
So thank you. I'm going to invite Jess and Emma to come up, and then I think for the four of us to take some, or the three of them, we'd love to take some questions for people for the next 10-15 minutes.
I've got a question.
Yes.
I'm embarrassed, Tanni, first of all, to say that when you were 14, I told you this before, but you opened our sports hall in school, and I was a very naughty girl in school, and your speech inspired me. Inspired me to go on the journey to go and play hockey for Wales. So I just want to say thank you, because that was obviously. Listen, I think we've spoken about diversity, and obviously we're in a room with all white people. No one who people of colour applied for any board positions. Is a huge in rugby is of different heritage.
Yeah.
How can we improve that? Because when I did an investigation for ITV, the answer I'd get back from NGBs, and it was constant, was nobody comes to us. And by the end of it, it was quite, well, extremely frustrating. So how do you as the chair of Sport Wales ensure that we're not just a room of white people going forward?
For me, we've got to go out and just find them, you know, and the same thing that happened with me when Alice. So I don't really know the process that they decided that they wanted someone young on the board and they wanted someone who was disabled. And I'd just come back from Barcelona, so I was in the kind of the Welsh media. You know, we just need to go out and, you know, you meet them in events, you know, give them your number, you know, connect, because, you know, still the reality is women don't apply for things unless they think they're 99% qualified, where we've just done some recent appointments at Sport Wales. I won't say what background of the man who applied, but had no background whatsoever in sport, and actually said he wasn't particularly interested in sport, and then was applying for quite a serious job in Sport Wales, and you go, wow, okay. So we've got to go and find and Anthony Hughes, who was a coach in Wales, who sadly passed away. He worked in Disability Sport Wales. He was really funny, but if you saw a disabled person out on the street, he would literally go and say, right, do you do sport? Right, do you want to do sport? He used to find a lot of people in Tesco's. He used to, you know, we call it big Tesco's, used to follow young people and disabled children and their families around Tesco's, and there was definitely one family who basically went, we'll bring our child to a sports event if you just leave us alone. So maybe not do that, but we've got to go out and look, because, you know, there's the barriers of being a woman, and there's all the intersectional barriers as well. That we've got to measure as well.
As a person who I was approached by Anne, and that's obviously, you know, Anne's hockey, so she's our queen in our eyes. But did you feel that it was kind of, how did you feel? Because that's often as well as like, you know, do we then go to someone who may be, you know, of a different heritage? Is that you know, condescending? How do you balance that between doing the right thing but also ensuring that they're not feeling that they're only on the board because they may be black or brown? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I've definitely been on the board of stuff because I'm disabled, and I've definitely been asked once whether I was a lesbian. and this is like 15 years ago, and it was sort of done in jokingly, like, are you not lesbian as well? Because that will tick a box. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's how you approach people.
Okay.
You know, I'm probably not approach random people in the street,
Yeah,
but you know, a lot of stuff we do, you know, whether it's, you know, we had a big conference last year, we're really conscious of people walk through the door, there's not that diversity. We've got to ask individuals. I mean, we know some of the reasons people don't put themselves forward, but they're quite complicated as well. And I think certainly some of the appointments I've been involved in probably in the last 5 years, where in various bodies where I've approached really senior women and said, oh, would you like to apply for this? Some of it's like, why would I do that? You know, like, why would I give up my career, you know, outside sport, or why would I give my time to that? Because sometimes the culture is not seen to be attractive. And this is what we've got to try and change as well, that the you know, some of the culture, you know, where the reality is, you know, sport at its best is amazing, but it also at elite level can develop a set of behaviours which are not inclusive, not welcoming. You know, bullying, intimidation, sexual harassment, you know, still exists.
But even at senior level in some organisation that exists as well, isn't it? So it's ensuring that, you know, you do have people that adhere to those behaviours.
But I think there also creates the problem as well. So my wife works in banking, and her boss is female, very senior. And if she went somewhere else to her, and we spoke about that would feel that all the battles she had to try and do it in that sector that she's in would almost be lost. So she's trying to empower people in her field to go through the finance sector, and it seems it's very hard to get from that, because they still feel they're fighting the battle to go somewhere else. I think for us in terms of colour and everything else, is if we can get more diversity at a younger age, I know it's not the thing we want, but at time we'll get more variety as we go through. But you know, it starts off driving back there, and you create that bigger base of the pyramid, and then we can drive more diversity as we go up. But it's just such an awkward, complex piece, because I know people, as I said, battling in their own fields. To give it up to them would feel like all the years they've battled to get where they are would almost be lost, even though we empower somewhere else. To them, it's something we want to let go.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think for Cymru Women Sport, you know, as an organisation and as an entity, this absolutely cannot move forward without having this conversation and it being representative of the Wales that we live in. You know, we're talking about advocacy, we're talking about changing deep systemic structures. There is no way this organisation can do that if you don't have people represented in all roles and all levels. So I mentioned this at the start, but you know, fundamentally for us as we move forward in the next week, that is something that we're just conscious of, and we have to change. And I think we're already committed to this is going nowhere unless actually it represents the Wales that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did a bit of a recruitment process before Christmas, and we had a lot of interest, didn't we? And actually, we've had some of those people join us in an advisory panel in the room today. But we could have filled the board. We could have filled it with people, you know, all the same, some of those roles back for people who are able to offer us a different perspective as well, and actually drive us forward in a slightly different way as well.
I mean, I'm sorry, I still go to a lot of stuff where I'm the only person with a visible impairment in the room, where there'll be 200 people in the room, and you know, you go, oh, okay. So you know, it's good that we now recognise invisible disability, but you can't see it. So you know, there's so many things that are still, you know, a kind of challenge. But that's not. Yeah, I'm a great fan of measuring stuff, you know, because. You know, if you look at disability pay gap, a load of companies don't measure that because it's really bad. And so, but if you don't measure, you know, and that's what we have to start doing.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm going to do a bit of, I'm Wales Lead for Women on Board. And so one of my key in your career will benefit, both your career, but will benefit all the things we're talking about. That's my pitch. The other thing I think is observations of having grown up in Wales, moved away with work and then come back.
In the media about Gen Z males having a bit of a different view, or some of them towards feminism and what that does, coming out of all the, dare I say, Andrew Tate and how do you see us, how do we deal with that going forward if we still need to make the change that we need to make when we're not even sure if actually our youngest generation that are coming through are going to be as on board as some of our current generations are?
It's a good question. I mean, I think social media is just, I mean, I love and hate social media. To be, you know, when Twitter was just pictures of cats, It was quite lovely, and now I find some social media really difficult because it's not a place to have a sensible discussion about anything. Obsession with, I think, kind of fame and we're dealing with some really complicated times at the moment, in some ways much more complicated than, when I was growing up. So I think, building and helping young women develop resilience is even more important, and dealing with some of that, and some of the things that come in, say, Andrew Tate, it's really worrying that young men feel a connection to that and aspire to kind of be that type of person. So it's how we try and refocus it. Our responsibility to educate young men as well as young women. I think we're going to have to think about that much more carefully than we've ever done, because it's not just about telling women that you can stand up and you can be tough. And if I was education minister, I'd kind of quite radically change a lot of things about education. But I think there's just we've got to do more to show it's not the real world. And I was reading some stuff this morning about because of social media, access to pornography. A ridiculous number of now 12 and 13-year-olds, boys and girls, have access to hardcore porn, and how that changes relationships, and the amount of sexual abuse for young girls has gone through the roof. I mean, it's just quite terrifying. How some of that is going to affect young people growing up. So I think as much as women's sport has done loads and has come so far, it can be quite a scary place for young women as well. Should probably ask people who are younger than me. Just look at me.
No, I completely agree, and I think bringing it back to Cymru Women Sport, I think we've talked a lot about systemic level change, and that's exactly what you've alluded to, Kira, I think. But women in all roles at all levels are kind of key in that as well. So, governance structures not being representative, how are you going to be able to make decisions and have conversations that really impact on the ripple down effect of sport in kind of all of those roles? So, yeah, I think, for us, that's obviously hugely topical as well, around how we kind of make touch points in different areas, from governance to media to participation to investment. And hopefully, links with a lot of what kind of Tanni has said in terms of that education piece and change.
I think as well, I mean, it's been mentioned a couple of times, but male allies, we were really surprised. I think somebody did say to us, about how we pitch this organisation. Any thoughts are very welcome, but are men interested in helping women progress and change? We've got one man in the room today who definitely is, which is fabulous to see, but we perhaps need to work a little bit on our narrative. We need to talk to people about what we need from them, and we do need men to be on this journey, because we can't do it alone. We are slightly over half the population, but we've got to take men on the journey with us.
But I think there's quite a few people here from clubs or FAW and Ospreys. Like Ashton Hewitt got in touch with me, he said, can I help, because he saw my Instagram, and we talk about those opening networks. I think there's a load of us here that probably work with male allies that actually they probably don't think, God, it's not for us as well, isn't it? So just having that conversation, because there are definitely men that
I think it's hard for men as well. I think it's hard for, I'm speaking on behalf of men here.
But I think thousands of years.
I think it's hard to know where you overstep and mark where you put. And I know we do a lot of work with Hugo Monnier, and he's been on the Women's Sport Trust, who's a trust in the Women's Sport Trust. But he and I have some really open, honest, even commentating on women's games when actually he hasn't been doing it in the past. So is he taking the place of a woman that should be doing it? So I think there is that heart. But I think if we can put our arms around, welcome in, so I think men almost need a bit more of an invitation to come into this space, because it might be a bit intimidating, and it's almost
just on that, we've been running around as leagues just over a year. It's a brand new sport, really, in a lot of senses. So we're still finding our way, but it's predominantly women. So we've got about 12% male players at the moment, and I could honestly say that they're big female sport advocates, and what they generate from the women in the teams, and they inspire them, they support them, and so maybe there's some element, I don't know how that would work, but our experience with having males involved in a women's game, if you like, I don't know if that's actually a true statement, but we'll go with it. Yeah, it's been a really good experience. So maybe there's, I know there's been male netball occasionally and things like like that. We never really hear about any of those things. So it's always because we're entering into a male-dominated sport.
Yeah.
Well, our experience is the opposite, and it's been a really good experience. Your husband plays. So we've got, Rounders is a family sport more. We've got mums playing against sons and with their daughters, and I've been in team sports since I can remember, and I've never been involved in something so diverse. So listening to you all now and where your backgrounds are predominantly female, are predominantly male. Rounders hasn't really been a sport yet, and we've got a big ambition to make sure it is. But actually, maybe that also needs to come in, get involved, and see how it can be flipped.
There's a bit. So where are you from in Wales?
Wales netball.
There was a piece that I've heard as well around young men that actually we talk about things. We talk about, oh, this is the way that it is. This is the way society is, and obviously it is crap. You look at all the stats and things. But people then also feel they can jump on the bandwagon with the set because this is, oh, that's the norm. Actually, if we talk and celebrate the men that are supporting women's sport and that are our allies, and that's the norm, and if we have their sport stepping forward and defending women, and that becomes the norm, but actually then, because I feel there's this extreme men over here, we're never going to change, and then there's the men over here who are strong men. It's this bit in between that we want to shift towards being more allies. So if we can celebrate and highlight, and that becomes the norm, of course, why would men not support what women are doing? It's good, commercially, for society, then that kind of feels like a positive thing too. So
I don't know if this is completely necessarily made up, but it might be.
Which,
yeah, so that's the caveat. So what I heard about the Euros was that suddenly when England got into the final, like loads of people were requesting tickets, loads of men were requesting tickets. And what I heard was that if they hadn't requested tickets for the first games, they were just told, no, you're not going to provide them. Yeah, and that was kind of really interesting. It was like, yeah, you can't just jump in at the end and go, oh, it's brilliant. If you weren't there at the start, then, that was quite a strong, line, I think, to take.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also then it has a really big long-term impact now, because I'm thinking of, traditionally when I was young watching sport, it would just be me and my dad watching rugby and me and my dad watching football. There was only one thing to watch, was men playing. Now with the success of the Baronesses and other pieces, it was me sit down with my dad to watch ladies football, and that would have been, if I had a child, an old person, that would have been my son or daughter watching it. So I think that's also going to kind of contribute now, where it becomes more normal to see. Hopefully that will kind of lessen, they should be doing that, or this person should be doing it. It becomes a bit more ingrained into society then.
I've got okay, 2 more questions. Is it allowed 2 more questions? One at the back.
Hi, so I'm Ria, former chief exec of Hockey Wales and former hockey player. Currently run a leadership and mental fitness business, so really excited to meet everybody and excited to be part of Cymru Women Sport. Tanni, my questions around education, and I know how much of an advocate you've been for PE on the school curriculum. Massive captive audience, there's all these girls in front of us in the school environment. Recently, obviously, the change of school curriculum and PE coming off, even the word physical education is off, it's health and well-being. I did my masters on it, so a real concern for me. Should we be concerned about the impact of that fundamental school change within Wales? And Sue's obviously asked a question about the difference between England and Wales, private schools in England and more access. Do we foresee for 2 Commonwealth Games down the road that Wales might be underperforming compared to where they are now? And just to add to that, I'm a former PE teacher, my friends are teachers, they don't know who Leah Wilkinson is. She is Wales' most capped player, more than any other sport man or woman. I hope you all know who she is. But they don't talk about, those teachers don't talk about women and girls in the same way as maybe the male teachers do. How do we fix that? And do we have a responsibility to do so?
All of that, Tanni.
My questions there.
No, so we got really close a few years ago to getting PE measured the same, or given it the same status as literacy and numeracy. So we've got all this data that shows actually how important it is being physically active to literacy and numeracy. And then there were some bad STEM results in Wales, and then it all went to, we've got to fix STEM results, instead of saying, well, actually PE can be, physical activity can be part of that. So I do think it's a problem, because it's about having a healthy mind and body and spirit, and having that balance in the school day. And I think what you see is, if you look at a lot of women my age, so pretty much all the women I went to school with had 20-25 years where they didn't do any physical activity. Encouraging. also the way they encourage their daughters to play, because of their personal experience, is kind of quite interesting. So no, I do think it's a problem that and you know how we have that conversation. So you know there are things we could do with Sport Wales, and then there's also limits to what we can do as well, because you know some of it is you know we can have an opinion, but it doesn't mean to say that you know necessarily Welsh Government has to listen to us. But it's not just the impact on. I think it's quite helpful to use elite sport as part of that conversation, because people get it. But actually, the bigger impact for me as well is that you know we're not going to have women who are being fit and healthy to work. You know, pension ages for women are only going one way. You know, and an impact on you know a changing society. So I think that's where we need to use the lens of elite sport to then you know widen it to other things. But we're seeing that problem in different ways all over the UK. You know, cricket as a sport is you know so you know the data on. You know, so many of the men's team come through independent schools. A number of them will have been given a scholarship for sixth form, but actually it's independent schools that have got the time and the space. When you've got all Wednesday afternoon for PE, and you might have a Saturday as well, then you've got time to play cricket, where if you've got a 35-minute PE lesson, you haven't got time to do those things. So I think it's like our responsibility. We're seeing, if I move this to Paralympic sport, you know, it's about educating the younger Paralympians about the history of our sport, because you know some of the ones in their 20s now don't know people a generation before me or two generations before me in wheelchair racing who made the change, because it's not on the internet and there's no YouTube videos of it. So you know, without Chris Hallam, who lived in Cymru, who you know won the London Marathon when I was 12, and I remember watching him going, oh, this is what I want to do. You know, I wouldn't have had my career. He knocked down so many of the barriers for me to then come behind him. So this is where we kind of need to, you know, not sit down and teach people history, but they need to kind of know the. And that's why I talk a lot about Anne Ellis, because Anne probably, you know, actually in Wales she will, but she's had a massive impact on sport in the UK, which she probably is. I don't think she's ever had the credit for what she's done for UK sport, and you know that's where we need to sort of you know get those names, but. That's where the history of you know women not being in the media, you know, and not being covered, or you know, depending how Wales are playing at rugby, you know, we've got to talk about those names, and that's probably where we can through social media is put those names out there.
I think just to add to that, Tanni, so I think even though there's enormous challenges and the changes with the curriculum, like there's also an opportunity there, and I think you know this idea of how do we create this whole school approach, which is about system level change. So it's not just about PE, it's about active lessons and you know how you get to and from school and all of those things. And all of those things need to be considered through women's lenses as well, because that's all different to what kind of boys and men need. And I think the last thing I'd say on that is just, you know, our friends at Women in Sport are absolutely the experts in this space. So the research that they do with, you know, school-age children, school-age girls around the needs of school and the needs of sport in school is just amazing. And I think it just reinforces the need for organisations like Women in Sport and Cymru Women Sport to exist, to be that kind of expert voice. So there's loads that we can learn definitely by kind of sharing across the system as well.
It's also how we connect. I mean, if you think a street lighting, you know, access to a rugby club and a girl's got to walk through a dark car park to access the pitch, they're not going to do it. So I think our connection is beyond here. It's, you know, it's other Welsh Government bodies to say transport, anything like that. Like how are we making that change easier for people?
Yeah. I'm conscious that it's nearly lunchtime. I'll take one more question if that's right.
Hi, Cathy Owens. I used to run women's rugby before either Sport Wales or the WRU. Let us in. A long time ago.
Very much appreciated.
But, you know, so that. You give much less of a shit about things. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really pleased that you know women have taken this on, and looking forward to working in the organisation. And I think it's you know very positive, everything we've heard today. And I just think we need to think about a little bit of sort of constructive impatience, you know, because there's quite a lot we could be doing to celebrate and advocate, and there's also a little bit we could do punch people in the face. So you know, like follow the money. You know, we spend quite a lot of money, not as much as we'd like, but on supporting sport in Wales, and a lot of those sports, you know, have a third of women just not existing. You know, they're not on the boards, they're not in the participation, they're not coaching. Ethnic minorities too. I mean, you know, but we are, so at some point we have to sort of dial down the taps a bit and say, actually, unless you are going to join us on this journey, maybe we could give you a little bit less money next year.
The Code of Sports Governance in terms of Sport England and UK Sport, what's the situation in Wales on that in terms of the funding of sports and the gender equality on boards? Is there a similar?
I mean, okay, I had probably pre-Sport Wales view and a Sport Wales. So in the I would have been definitely, if you're not doing this, just don't fund. And you know, funding does matter. Also, removing funding doesn't always help because you remove funding and it shuts everything down. But you know, there are times when you just have to say, okay, enough's enough. That you know, we're not going to keep supporting you unless you know, you've got duty of care, unless you know, do things in a better way. So you know, Cymru Sport Wales, yeah, absolutely. In terms of our diversity is incredibly important, and you know, because it's the Welsh government. So my appointment's Welsh government, and then it's still Welsh government for board, but we have an input into it. And you know, that's, you know, we're doing a round of recruitment at the end of this year, and you know, I've been spending the last 6 months thinking about how we get, you know, enough of people applying who we need to apply. So it's always a challenge, but that's why we need to keep looking for more people.
On that point, I'm sorry we've got to end, but do you think that because we're so small, Welsh Government, Sport Wales and the NGBs, that there's a lack of accountability in the you know, because I'm just asking genuinely, in a case of friends of friends of friends, do we need to be a little bit more hardened in our maybe approach to actually having those relationships? Because I found that you can go one place, one person, and is that affecting our ability to make people accountable? And someone said no, but I'd like to know. Well,
I think there's real accountability. So from Sport Wales, there's a capability framework. Every national governing body has to sign up to, part of which is about gender parity on the boards. So there's a framework to force those, and so on quality discussions when it was a bit, and this is only 4 or 5 years ago, when they go, well, 30%'s enough, isn't it? And I'm like, no, it's got to be gender parity. And so, you know, there's little battles along the way, and then, you know, Sport Wales do hold people and those national governing bodies to account. But I think we also have to recognise sport is changing so much, isn't it, in terms of, you know, there are new sports emerging. They don't want to be part of the big governance framework. So how do we keep people safe, and how do we ensure that that's really equal? You know, there's so much change going on. So I think there's some really good governance in place in some places, and probably nothing in others.
I'm not a regulator, or you know, So I think I did say in front of the Culture Committee, if you want to make me a regulator, and then, but yeah.
I'm gonna pause there because I'm conscious we can carry on all afternoon. Yes, did you want to finish?
Yeah, just and Amy, you're probably going to jump in as well, but just 3 very quick things from me, and they're all thank you. So firstly, to you, Sue, and to Tanni, we know you are incredibly busy, so thank you for giving up your Friday afternoon. Really great conversation, and you're right, we probably could carry on for hours, so hopefully you've got a bit of time to sort of chat and have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Secondly, PwC, thank you so much for hosting us. Really brilliant venue, absolutely lovely view, just out of terrain, so very Wales, brilliant. But yeah, look forward to working with you in the future as well. And then lastly, actually to Emma, who can absolutely organise anything you need. So, Alison, you cannot poach her for any other board. But the reason that we're able to live stream, the reason that we're in this building, how we've got Sue and Tanni here is totally down to Emma, and Lee, who can't be here today either. So just, yeah, massive thanks to you.
One thing as well is just to please share as much as you can. We've built actually really great social networks already in the last few months, but we're only doing that because you guys are the ones who are sharing. So please do whatever you can to help us grow. As we mentioned before, we've just recruited 3 new trustees. We are on the lookout for more diverse people to join us. We do have an advisory panel joining us as well, but we also need all of you to be advocates and to continue on the journey with us. So thank you so much for joining us today, and please do enjoy the food. Yeah, lunch is through and on your right.
So can I just talk, because there was someone mentioned about putting this on social media and getting out there and driving a change. If you can, I'll stand at the back, or if we can try and get a picture of everyone. Then everyone can tag it, we can put it through there, people can tag themselves in. And it's a good way of self-promotion and kind of driving something through.